Texas has followed suit. Missouri is going to follow suit. By the way, folks, anywhere where there's Republican leadership, they're all going to bend the knee and openly gerrymander for their king. You'd think maybe Democrats would be proactive, get on top of it, get ahead of it. But no, the Democratic leadership is instead busy beating up Mamdani. Alas, he's going to do that. Furthermore, Putin came in, his daddy, and put the worm in his ear. Mail-in ballots are illegal. Why do you allow it? Donald Trump himself has used mail-in ballots. Okay, Donald Trump himself knows that mail-in ballots are illegal. The reason why he wants to go against mail-in ballots is, first and foremost, Putin told him, and that gets the worm in his ear. But secondly, he wants to engage in voter suppression. However, what he doesn't realize is Republicans use mail-in ballots, right? Rural America uses mail-in ballots. Regardless, anything and everything to suppress democracy, the popular will. Now, he is weak. Weak tyrants, authoritarians, can give a punch, they can't take it, right? They dispense cruelty but demand civility. They want safe spaces for themselves but cruelty for the rest of us, right? Case in point, these snowflakes couldn't take it that Jimmy Kimmel 2 days ago said the most benign comment. And he didn't say anything about Charlie Kirk. Actually, if you look at his post, he condemned the murder. He was making a crack about MAGA. And, you know, he's not Fox. Oh, you know, Fox, like Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfield, who all went down and doubled down and reported before there was even a suspect or a motive that it was the far left. Yeah, he ain't like that. He said some stupid comment, and according to now reporting, the ABC executives realized what Jimmy Kimmel said was harmless. Like, he didn't even have to apologize for it, whatever. The reason for those who are following what Jimmy Kimmel was fired was yesterday, Wednesday, the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, trying to literally get inside Donald Trump's anus and live there forever and please his king, went on Benny Johnson's podcast. Benny Johnson, for those who don't know, was a plagiarist fired by BuzzFeed. Then he became a right-wing tool, and specifically Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, and also David Rubles got paid through Tenet Media. Tenet Media was a front used by Russia to promote pro-Russia, anti-American talking points. And Benny Johnson and Tim Pool and David Rubles, who got paid really well, said, oh, we had no idea. So on that Benny Johnson's podcast, the FCC chair goes yesterday and straight up threatens, does a shakedown against ABC, but specifically the affiliates, Next Gen, right? And says they could do this the right way or the hard way. I didn't like what Jimmy Kimmel said 2 days ago about Charlie Kirk, so you better do the right thing. Next Gen, which owns about 30% of stations across America, immediately freaked out and then put pressure on ABC and said, we're not going to carry Jimmy Kimmel until he apologizes. And furthermore, until Jimmy Kimmel, a private citizen, gives money to Charlie Kirk's political organization, Turning Points USA. So, long story short, the FCC and Donald Trump put pressure on ABC to remove Jimmy Kimmel. He had already telegraphed this, he being Donald Trump, about 5 weeks ago. And then yesterday, he said he wants to go after Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers. He already wanted to go after Howard Stern, who I think his contract's not going to be renewed with Sirius. And he's, already went after Stephen Colbert. So this is what's happening. They are using the power of the presidency to crush dissent. Now, what I've been telling MAGA, and you cannot win over MAGA, is the following. This is not owning the libs. You are not owning the libs through this. You are being owned by the billionaires. Let me repeat this, MAGA and the right wing. You are not owning the libs. You are being owned by the billionaires. This is what happens in Russia. This is what happens in places like Hungary, where the strong leader and his billionaire friends drink up all our milkshake. Right? It's the movie There Will Be Blood. I drink your milkshake, right? So they're going after our healthcare, they're going after our pensions, they're going after all our money, and they're going to get tax cuts, and you're going to lose your Medicaid. And them and their rich buddies are going to gobble up all of our resources, just gobble, 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 gobble. And what they're going to do is pit you, the left versus the right. But they're just doing a culture war. Back in the day, it was Southern strategy, and this is just a reboot of it. What's actually happening is they're going to weaken you and hollow you out. All right. And you are going to be screwed. But the reason why they are hastening, if you will, the demise of ABC and CNN is because they think it'll own the libs. So I said something yesterday, and I'll tweet this, and I was on Nick Paro's Substack just a couple of minutes ago. I said the following, and which seemed to go viral. Every major talent that works for ABC and Disney should refuse to show up for work until Jimmy Kimmel is reinstated. Marvel movies need to shut down. Ditto the sitcoms. Collective boycott. Corporations love money more than anything, and this will harm them and force them to do the right thing. Will they do the right thing? I don't know. I don't have much faith in the 1% and the comedians and the actors. But I guarantee you, folks, you do a boycott. Robert Downey Jr. is being paid, I think, what, gosh, $200 million to be Doctor Doom in the new Avengers movie. Disney owns Marvel movies, right? Walk off. Star Wars, nope. Sitcoms, nope. Collectively, have all these people come out and say, we will not show up for work until Jimmy Kimmel is instated. ABC loves money. Disney loves money. They love money more than anything. Corporations love money more than Trump. They love money more than the color white. The color green trumps the color white. If we boycott, guess what? Eventually, they're going to bend the knee. Eventually, they're going to cry uncle. Now, this is America. We learned the hard way. I'm old enough to remember, folks. 9/11. The country lost its mind after 9/11. Just go back if you were alive. Just remember how crazy this country went. Bill Maher was canceled. Susan Sontag was canceled. Rage Against the Machine was canceled, right? You couldn't criticize anything. Dixie Chicks, the whitest women on earth, were canceled for the most benign comment. I remember Natalie Maines, the lead singer of Dixie Chicks, and for those who don't know, Dixie Chicks at the time were one of the most popular country rock crossover bands who had this huge tour. I think it was 2003. White, cute, blonde, benign, anodyne. Everyone liked them. And Natalie Maines just said, I'm embarrassed that George W. Bush is from Texas. Bye, y'all. That's all she said. Because of that, they took tractors over Dixie Chicks CDs. They made bonfires. Children, CDs are compact discs. They're an archaic form of us olds. They're an archaic form of music that us olds used to listen to. When we were young in college, we used to burn CDs for girls we liked and gave them as CD mix tracks. You might look at them in your family's home and be like, what is that? And you can now use it as a frisbee. But they did bonfires of CDs and took tractors over Dixie Chicks CDs, right? Country went nutty. 2004 came. They elected George W. Bush again. I went to sleep knowing he was going to win. All these Democrats were pissed off. I understand why you were pissed off. People couldn't, like, this man is the dumbest man on earth. Look at George Bushism. It's just amazing. People misunderestimated him, but then he won again because that was the mood of the country. But what happened? Around 2005, 2006, people started realizing, oh, this war on terror is pretty disastrous. I don't think Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Oh, democracy did not bloom in the Middle East. Muslims did not greet us with open arms. We're getting American soldiers back in caskets. Why are we fighting this war? Oh, look, Republicans, yet again, their economic policies are disastrous. Oh my God, we're heading towards a recession. We might be heading to the worst recession since the Great Depression. Oh my God, I've lost my home. Oh my God, Katrina-like crisis. And then this country was so pissed off after 7 years of suffering. They're like, you know what? Let's just elect a black guy. He might be Muslim. I don't care. Well, let's just elect him. And the only reason Barack Obama was elected was due to the disaster of the George W. Bush administration. I know a lot of people like to think it's because, we had turned the page and, we had become more enlightened. Maybe. I still say the main reason was because things were so bad that people are like, you know what? Something new. Barack Obama, black, multiracial, hope, change. Yes. And so they gave it to him. Now, why am I saying this? That was my lifetime. I remember that. America learns the hard way. We are a masochistic country. We live in the United States of amnesia. This country barely elected Donald Trump after he effed up this country. They're like 4 years later, like, the guy who lied to us about COVID and sank the economy and incited a violent insurrection, maybe he'll do a good job this time. And all these Americans who thought that the center would hold, that the institutions would keep us in check. I know many of these people, educated people. 7 months ago, 8 months ago, you know what they told me? Ah, Waj, they'll hold them in check. Ah, Waj, it can't happen here. This is America. Oh, they will hold them. And I said, what they? What happens when the they are co-opted? What happens when the they are culled? What happens when the they are complicit? Now you know. So now we're in it. It's a unique threat, folks, uh, because I don't think we've ever been in a situation like this. This is fascism, and I think you have to use these words. And people like me and others who've been using the word fascism were mocked and ridiculed when we were using the word authoritarian, white supremacy, racist. This is the world's worst. I told you so. I have no particular talent or Nostradamus foresight. I'm just a student of history. I connect the dots. I trust the evidence of my eyes and ears. And I took Donald Trump and MAGA seriously, and I know the people around them and their ideology. So I just put it together, and I say they're playing for all the marbles. They're going to go for martial law. They might not call it martial law, but they're going to unleash the National Guard and the military against the American people. Donald Trump in October said, I'm going to unleash the National Guard and military against the enemy from within. He did it. He called the press the enemy of the state. He's been inciting stochastic terror against his enemies for 10 years. The Supreme Court, after you saw last year's decision that essentially gave him absolute immunity, he's asking the Supreme Court, for those who are joining us late, to allow him to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. I hope they don't. I have no faith in the Supreme Court. So far, through the emergency docket, Sotomayor said, Justice Sotomayor, that it's almost like the Supreme Court. It's almost like Trump administration has the Supreme Court on speed dial. So I think they're, the unitary executive theory. They want their king. They're going to get it by any means necessary. Now, you're like, well, it's just all depressing as hell, man. What's the good news? The somewhat good news is the following. He doesn't have the numbers. Donald Trump and MAGA do not have the numbers. He has never cracked 50. Even when he beat Kamala Harris, he did not crack 50. If you look at the polls, the most recent polls, it's only been 8 months. It should still be his honeymoon period. He's underwater. He's underwater on the economy by double digits. He's underwater on his strong suit of immigration. Why? Overreach. He's negative double digits on Epstein. The Epstein files are not going away. Over 80% of Americans all agree they want to release the Epstein files. More and more information is coming out. The book coming out. The fact there's more prominent names in there. Women have come out. The reason why it's not going away is the survivors have come out and said, we're going to wait to see if they're going to do the right thing. And if not, we'll just name the people. His base got radicalized by Donald Trump, Don Bongino, Fox, and others. They radicalized their base through conspiracy theories. The QAnon conspiracy theory came from 4chan. Jules, they don't need the numbers. They're purging voters, gerrymandering. I get it. We're going to get to that. They radicalized their base, and they thought that their base could be used as a weapon. Right? There's this movie called Weapons. It's the analogy. It just came out. It's a good movie where this lady uses essentially a type of like magic and voodoo to control the children, and then she uses the children as like these mindless weapons. She just like points them at her enemy, and they go literally tear up the enemy, right? So Donald Trump and MAGA said, we'll radicalize our base and use it as a weapon against our critics. But something's happened, folks. Frankenstein's monster has escaped the lab. They radicalized their base thinking that that base would stay loyal to them. There's fissures. There's fissures. All right. And what I'm telling people is everyone's looking for a knockout blow. Everyone's looking for a haymaker. That's not how you take out fascism. Fascism leaks. You find the cracks. You widen the cracks. Death by 1,000 cuts. Everyone has a role to play. And I would hope that ABC, which according to reporting, bent the knee. ABC executives realized that Jimmy Kimmel said nothing wrong, that whatever he said was super benign. Worst case scenario, maybe apologized. Like Brian Kilmeade, who literally last week said we should kill all homeless people. Remember that? On Fox, still has his job. The next day came out and said, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I didn't meant to say that. And that was that. He didn't say anything like that. All right. So ABC executives bent the knee. Even though they admitted Jimmy Kimmel said nothing wrong, they should have learned from Andor. Oh, something that Disney produced, an anti-fascist show. rebellions are built on hope, folks. But in the show Andor, right, there was Nemec's manifesto, a young man who writes this manifesto before he's killed and martyred, and the manifesto spreads, and he tells people to resist. Fascism is weak, it's brittle, it needs total control because it's so weak and brittle, right? It's afraid, but it can't sustain itself, right? And so everyone has a role to play. A teacher has a role to play. A mom has a role to play. A comedian has a role to play. An elected official has a role to play. And in Andor, they show you how these people who resisted the fascist empire, they didn't all have a Millennium Falcon. They didn't have lightsabers. They're all average Jose's and Joes, each person doing their part with their talents to just chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away. Now, the good news is, like I said, Donald Trump does not have the numbers. Furthermore, the people who voted for him are fleeing. So the Latinos who voted for him because they didn't really care about Donald Trump, they just want a better life, gone. All those Latino voters who switched from 2020 to 2024, folks, gone. It came out this week. Those Latino numbers have gone back to 2016. All right, young voters who have no real fidelity to Democrat or Republican anymore, right? They just want their lives being better. Gone. All right. He is negative on the inflation. He's negative on the tariffs. He's negative even on immigration. Why? Because these people are reckless. Because these people are stupid. Because these people, in a way, cannot help themselves. They're arrogance, right? They're not. Some of them are smarter than others. The recklessness, though, right? What they should have done is wait a couple of years and roll it out, but they can't. So I told Nick, I was talking to him, it reminds me of the character from Family Guy, Giggity, the guy who's like, giggity, giggity, like, oh, they got power. So every single thing they've done, overreach. National Guard, overreach. Masked armed ICE agents detaining and deporting people, overreach. Once people put it in the story of Kimmel Garcia, once it came in the news, negative double digits, which is why I think you need fighters. And I want to remind you all, because I try to keep the receipts. Chris Van Hollen. Chris Van Hollen was the only Democratic senator who stayed on the Kimmel Garcia case because he's a senator from Maryland. He went by himself to CCOT. You all remember that? And he said, I ain't going to leave until I get proof of life of Kimmel Garcia. It was in the news. They were forced to produce Kimmel Garcia. News was forced to cover it. And what happened? Kimmel Garcia, Donald Trump was negative double digits on this because even his base was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We didn't vote for you to straight up kidnap innocent people and deport them to a foreign prison. Remember that? Democrats, meanwhile, were like, let's pass the Lake and Riley Act and just make undocumented lives miserable. Democrats were like, should we speak about Mahmoud Khalil and other pro-Palestinian activists who literally were detained for no criminal charges? No. And folks, what's happening right now is what's happened to Palestinian activists. We kept warning you. You were perfectly fine with them cracking down on transgender people, perfectly fine cracking down on immigrants, perfectly fine straight up crushing pro-Palestinian students who aren't just Palestinians and Muslims. A lot of Jews there also, right? Picking up Mahmoud Khalil, picking up Rumeysa Ozturk and others. What's happening now? And what we kept saying is if you give them permission to go after all these people, they're going to go after you. So that's what we're witnessing right now. But the overreach is unpopular. Now, the other overreach, Charlie Kirk. Yes, MAGA loves Charlie Kirk. Yes, MAGA anointed Charlie Kirk as their angel and their saint. Normies don't know who Charlie Kirk is. Let me repeat this. Normies have no idea who Charlie Kirk is. All right. Normies, who are the majority, because MAGA at most is 30%. If you look at all the data for the past 10 years, it's 30%. And even within that, it's not like hardcore, but like 30% of America. I've been saying this for 8 years. I was on Chris Hayes' show. He invited me on MSNBC. He's like, when will this turn? And I said, for my lifetime, I don't think it will. I think we've lost 30% of America. They've January 6th, Charlie Kirk, and they believe Donald Trump won the 2020 election. What are you going to do? He lost it. But that leaves 70%. That's the majority. And also, he's deeply unpopular around the world. Look how the UK is treating him. Thank you, Brits. Thank you. Okay. So you're dealing with a thoroughly unpopular man, right? And Charlie Kirk, the martyr, right? Charlie Kirk, their Ragstag Fire moment is around Charlie Kirk. Ragstag Fire, I know for those who don't know, it was when the parliament burned down and they blamed a communist and Nazis then used that to implement martial law. And voila. Next thing you know, it became a dictatorship. That's what happened. folks. Oh, someone just sent me a message. Sorry, I was just reading that real quick. Charlie Kirk. Now they've used Charlie Kirk as a Reichstag fire moment, but again, think about it. The normies are like, "Who the hell is Charlie Kirk?" My wife was like, "Charlie Kirk? What's happening with Charlie Kirk? Who is he? Is he a saint? Charlie Kirk has a bigger burial than the Pope." And my mom and the normies have been reading about Charlie Kirk, and they're like, this guy was hateful. Oh my God. This is the person that they love. Look what he said about black people, women, immigrants. Look what he promoted violence. He was perfectly fine. He told his followers to pardon, to raise the bail money for David DePape, the nut who beat up Paul Pelosi. He supported the January 6th insurrection. He supported the white nationalist conspiracy theory. This guy is terrible. This is their God, their king, their leader. What the F? So, uh, more and more people who realize this, the more and more people are horrified by it. Now, secondly, once you make a martyr out of a unpopular person and use that to crush other people, that makes you less popular, right? Like if there was a super popular, like if there's Dolly Parton, in honor of Dolly Parton, I will crush her enemies. You might have people going along because, people like Dolly Parton. But, with Nick Fuentes, now you're going after firing people, getting rid of Jimmy Kimmel. More people like Jimmy Kimmel then they know or like Charlie Kirk. All right. So there's going to be a lot of grandmas turning on TV on Friday, like, I want to laugh with Jimmy. And then they're going to see this 1 hour hagiography of friggin' Charlie Kirk. And they're like, what the hell is this? And the more that's going to happen, more people are going to Google Charlie Kirk and be like, this guy was terrible. Oh my God. So I'm just laying the dots here, folks. Give me 1 second. Yes, let me send you an invite. I actually want to get Mike Madrid here. Sending now. Mike Madrid. Give me 1 second, folks. I'm not going away anywhere. Sometimes it's glitches. I'm here with you. Just give me a second. Um, Mike Madrid is a co-founder of the Lincoln Project, who really has been following the numbers, especially when it comes to Latino voters. And he thankfully said yes. I hope he says yes, so you all see that they don't have the numbers. These are all signs of a weak regime. Donald Trump has cankles. He is old. He is not doing well. What we found out right now from sources, and you could trust the evidence of your eyes, is that many people inside the regime don't think he's living that long. This is why they're going steroids, all in accelerationist with Project 2025, right? That's what's happening. A 4-year plan is being condensed to like 6 more months. Secondly, if you've noticed, everyone's making moves for the crown. J.D. Vance tried to slide into Charlie Kirk's seat. Guess what? J.D. Vance has a brown wife and brown kids, and J.D. Vance is a rich doughboy who is not respected by MAGA. Candace Owens, folks. I've been watching this for the first time because I look at the Fissures. I've never seen Candace Owens shows. I've seen her last 3 streams. She's on a warpath. Out of all the people, she seems to be the only one who actually is actually saddened because Charlie Kirk was her friend. She is openly now saying, this is not a left thing. This is not a right thing. We've all evolved. This is about evil. And I do not believe the story on Charlie Kirk's murder, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And then you see some anti-Israel, anti-Semitic conspiracies pop up in MAGA. Then you saw Tucker Carlson respond to Pam Bondi's overreach. It's all overreach, right? And saying, whoa, what do you mean you're going to go after hate speech? What does that mean? Legally, there's no such thing as hate speech, right? No, this is the First Amendment and free speech. And then what happens if this administration or any administration goes after people who, I don't know, criticize wars with Israel? That's not right. So you're seeing these, just pay attention to these figures. All these people are pieces of shit. I know. But, like the Brits did to my people, divide and conquer, right? So you're seeing these fissures open up, play on these fissures, right? Furthermore, with Epstein, fissures are opening up. They've radicalized their MAGA base again, around Epstein, and now they cannot release the files because Donald Trump is all up in the files. And so Kash Patel right now, cockeyed Kash Patel, who thinks he's going to meet Charlie Kirk in Valhalla, he's not, because once he gets to Valhalla, they'll be like, you're brown and you're Hindu, get the F away, and they're going to kick him and Usha Vance back to Earth. Well, they'll join me and I'll have a chai for them. And I said, was it worth it, Cash? Was it worth it, Usha? Was it? But I digress. So you're seeing these fissures already play out. The painful part of it is that our institutions should know better. If ABC didn't bend the knee, see, ABC bent the knee, folks, a couple of months ago, and I was trying to call it that they gave money to the Donald Trump administration because they got pissed off that George Stephanopoulos used the word rape to describe his sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. But he wasn't necessarily wrong. It was sexual assault, but according to the judge, those words were interchangeable. Easy, easy, easy win. 12b6 motion kicked it out. New York Times versus Sullivan, robust First Amendment protections. ABC bent the knee and paid off Trump, and they thought, okay, he'll be off our back. Bullies don't work that way. He goes, oh, you were weak, you bent the knee, I'll come back. CBS bent the knee to make sure the merger went through. Right, merger went through. Now Sinclair wants to do a $6 billion merger and actually get more domination and control over local stations. That merger will be approved by the FCC. So the FCC chair, Brian Carr, said, hey, we know what you want, right? You want the merger, so we're going to get you the merger. If you want the merger, you're going to have to do what I told you to do. So it's all extortion. So we have Mike Madrid. Mike Madrid is the co-founder of the Lincoln Project. Mike Madrid, like I said, has been following Latino trends in this country for years. And I wanted to bring Mike on because, Mike, the framing of this might be a bit strange for folks, but I believe Trump is weak. I believe these are actions of a weak, dying man. I believe he knows he doesn't have the numbers. I believe he knows he can't win, which is why he's going authoritarian. We have to embrace the fact that he's weak and use that to organize the majority and put pressure upon the Democrats and our institutions to say he's a weak man. He knows he's not going to win the midterms. He knows he might even lose the House and the Senate. And it's a weak man making these desperate authoritarian moves, putting Project 2025 on steroids because he is weak, because he is losing the numbers. He has lost the Latino voters. I want to ask you about this because they might not believe me, but I told them, I said, all those Latinos have gone back to 2016 numbers. The young voters have all gone back. So if people think I'm cray, I want you to make the case if you agree with me. And as you do, I'm going to bring on Allison Gill of Mueller, She Wrote. So you take it away, Mike.
Yeah, no, that is right. And then let me take it a step further. The whole point of redistricting, the mid-decade redistricting, is because they're losing. You don't do this if you don't redistrict. You don't game the rules if you're winning. The only reason that you do that, the only reason that you make these offensive fronts, they have to move now. Their great fear is losing the House in the midterms, because that functionally, I don't want to say it ends, but it dramatically changes the dynamics of this real rapid blitzkrieg that we're seeing right now, right? This lightning fast movement to make all of the institutions capitulate. The whole point of trying to redraw is because they're seeing the numbers that you're seeing, that I'm seeing, that a lot of us are analyzing, going, it's not quite 2018 numbers yet, but again, we're a year out from the midterms and the economy's getting worse, folks. It's not getting better.
Remember, recession, maybe even depression.
Exactly. The 2018 midterms, you have to remember, it was a 40-seat pickup by the Democrats. Big, big, big blue wave. And the economy was good. It was really good. People were feeling great about the economy. They were afraid of the direction this guy was taking us in. Now they're afraid of the direction that they're taking us in, and the economy is getting worse. So
Epstein.
And Epstein, and the foreign policy fiascos. Yes, add it all up. I mean, it's bad out there for them, and they know this. This is why they're running into trouble in New Hampshire right now. The Republican governor, says we don't want to deal with redistricting right now, and he's like, well, we may just kind of keep pushing to do it anyway, because the New Hampshire Republican governor knows that this is just bad politics for Republicans sitting there right now that are being forced to do this. So you're not crazy. That's what all the data says. That's what the historical trend line says. That's what the issue matrix, as we call it, all of the issues lining up to be at the forefront of voters' minds are all breaking against him, all breaking against the Republicans. That's why they're doing this. They're trying to grab as much as they possibly can. And yes, the answer is to offensively push back. Offense is the best defense.
Offense. Now, I have some ideas, Mike. What would you recommend? Let's do top down and then bottom up. Offense in this moment, because they're showing it's scary times. I get it, folks. This is fascism. I'm using the word fascism. We're in a fascist moment. Charlie Kirk's murder is used as a rack-stack fire to get as much control as possible. If you don't believe me, literally listen to them and look at their actions. But it's also desperations. Let's go top down, then bottom up. What should Democrats be doing at this moment?
Democrats in the leadership position need to follow the directive of, or at least what Gavin Newsom is doing in California, which is to fight and to respond aggressively on everything. Give no ground, cede no ground. The more ground that they have to fight on, the federal administration, the more difficult it is to pick up territory. I mean, let's just use kind of battleground tactics because that's exactly what
Absolutely.
it is.
This is war. This
It,
is war for our democracy, and I think we should admit it because that's how the right wing thinks it. And I think we need, let me use my Godfather references. We need a wartime conciliary, and we don't have a wartime conciliary. We have Schumer and Jeffries, and we need a new type of fighter to meet this moment.
that is absolutely the case. And so as a result, a lot of this is left to grassroots activists on the ground who need to push back. Look, it's important to push up and try to steal the spine of Democratic leadership, but we can't keep um, focusing on just those members exclusively and allow that frustration to kind of steamroll the whole resistance. You've got to push back on what is happening and where it's happening where you can. So absolutely try to steal the spine of those elected officials, but whether it's boycotting, whether it's engaging in social media, whether it's engaging in ground-to-ground activities, whether it's bolstering, contributing to groups that are engaged in this fight, we're in a kitchen sink moment. It's all hands on deck, and the days are more important between now and the midterms. There's still a long way to go, guys. And
Yeah.
that's, the problem is if you don't do it today, tomorrow gets harder, and that's the moment. So keep fighting, keep going every day. This is part of what this generation is being called to do. So be worthy of the moment and aggressive offense, offense, offense.
Yeah, exactly. Offense, 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 folks. And the reason why that's so important is they're trying to stifle and silence your voice. What a bully does, it takes the scalp of the weakest and says, see, this is what I did. Whoever defies me, this is what's going to happen to you. We're going to get rid of Karen Attia. Who are you? We're going to get rid of Matthew Dowd. Who are you? We're going to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel. We're going to get rid of Clemson professors. You better stay in line or you're next. And everyone that bows down and goes, oh, but the more and more you bow down, the more and more you allow yourself to be used as pavement, and the fascist wheels just go right over you. The more you stand up, yes, a few of us might get mowed down, but then you have a bulwark. You have a majority that stands up. And what I was telling them, Mike, is they don't have the numbers. No matter how scary this is scary. America is a big country. You and I have traveled this entire country. Folks, it's not a landlocked country. It ain't small like Hungary. We big. And in addition to we being big with a really diverse, beautiful terrain, there's 314 million of us. And this very fascist, very deliberate regime with some very smart people also is deeply reckless and also incompetent. Talk to us about that, Mike.
Well, look, a lot of what happened in the last first.
Allison, hello.
Allison, how are you? Welcome. I love this trio. A lot of what happened in the first administration was the incompetence is really what saved us, right? These nefarious actors they envisioned hoping to do this last time around, but they just once the incompetent folks got in charge, they weren't able to kind of follow through to the extent that they would have liked to. There was obviously January 6th. There were obviously some attempts to do this sort of thing. Now that's really kind of all that's left. There's not a whole lot of competence in the administration at this point in time. They learned a lot during the 4 years between the administrations. There's no question about that. They steeled their resolve. There's no question about that. And they consolidated some of the power, especially on the private interest side, and kind of worked to get some of the oligarchs and the really wealthy tech guys behind them, who are also helping to advance this. Incidentally, I think that's evidence to everybody. So we can't rely on just their incompetence this time. It's
Yeah.
still a factor. It's still a factor. It is a weak point in their front. It needs to be exploited. But don't overthink. Don't overthink these guys. Don't think that they're a bunch of geniuses. That's one of the main frustrations about this is they're not playing 4D chess. They're not brilliant in what they're doing. They are blustering. They're posturing. They make every 1% gain look like it's a 1,000% gain. They look like there's hundreds of millions of people rallying, over the course of the past week. None of this is true. It's all designed to give you the imagery and the perception that you can't win no matter what you do. That's the whole point. That's the strategy. And a lot of this, again, I said their main weakness is that incompetence. In my mind, That's why an offensive strategy works.
Allison, before I bring you in, I just want to ask Mike one quick question because he's in tune to conservative spaces more than I am, and I think Allison and I have talked about this before. Uh, I don't think, and this is just judging me from what I've heard from my family members who are very well aware and informed, that Charlie Kirk is the martyr that they think he is, in the sense that normies don't really know Charlie Kirk, Mike. My wife didn't know, my mom didn't know, a whole bunch of people didn't know, and once they found out about him, because they literally said, like, "Is this guy like a saint? He has a bigger send off than the Pope." They're like, "Oh my God, this man said such hateful things. What the hell? This is appalling." And then the fact that they're using Charlie Kirk to crush actually popular people like Jimmy Kimmel, I think will have a much bigger negative backlash. I just want to ask you that, Mike. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I always like to look at, data and response times. YouGov actually did a poll showing that Charlie Kirk, while he did have a very high name recognition amongst younger people, just younger folks, it tended to be slightly more negative than positive. So this imagery, like I said, so much of this is about theater. So much of this is about positioning and pageantry. Not just about the Charlie Kirk incident, but all of it. It's all designed to say we're an inevitable force that cannot be stopped, and we keep rolling. And that only exists until, like you said, somebody steps up and punches the bully in the nose. And when they do, they're exposed for who they are.
Allison, I wanted to talk to you yesterday, I think, but thankfully, she said I'm busy, and I thought she was going to relax, and then she told me she was doing it was more work because that's what Allison is a masochist. We are, you're in LA, Hollywood's there,
San
Jimmy
Diego.
Kimmel. Yeah, very well, yeah, close. Very popular, very loved. And what I'm telling people, and I just want your thoughts on this, is Trump is not popular. And what Trump is doing is a sign of weakness. And we need to acknowledge that weakness. And then we need to use all hands on deck to engage in a death by a thousand cuts against this fascist machine.
Yeah, this is, five alarm fire. A lot of folks who are very familiar with authoritarianism are saying that September 17th was it. That was the day when they pulled Kimmel off the air because, Mike Waj, the firing of Colbert was done by ABC or Paramount. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the FCC chair. I mean, there was pressure, obviously, from Donald Trump, but now we have more direct involvement with the FCC chair, putting pressure on this next star fellow who is a major Trump donor. And runs because of the ability, which should be illegal, by the way, to own that many affiliates for ABC. But because he does, he was able to preempt most of the places where they would air the show, which then made ABC pull the show. That is direct government First Amendment violation of free speech. That is controlling the opposition speech and trying to quash it. And, on the other side, we've got this squishy Antifa declaration of a Democrat, of a domestic terror organization. And, like many things that Donald Trump does, we don't have a legal mechanism for declaring a domestic group a terrorist organization. Otherwise, the Biden administration would have declared the Proud Boys and the Three Percenters and the Boogaloo Boys and the Oath Keepers our number one threat, terrorist threat in this country, white supremacist and domestic violence groups, uh, terror organizations. But we don't have a mechanism to do that legally. Generally, if somebody's a domestic and involved in terrorism, what you get is a sentencing enhancement, like they did with the Oath Keepers and they did with the Proud Boys. You can't declare them a domestic terror organization, but you can say, oh, hey, because this is domestic terror, we want to enhance their sentencing. And so that's kind of really the only mechanism we have. So for him to come out and declare that they're Antifa is a terrorist organization based on the mishaps and bungling of the of the mainstream and corporate media to declare that this guy is anti-fascist because he said something that was in a video game. We're now in this situation where Trump is trying to just say that Antifa, you know, and he does this all the time. He legally he can't rename the Department of Defense, but he did. Legally, he can't use the Alien Enemies Act to deport people, but he did. He is. Supreme Court's letting that happen through the shadow docket. So to say, oh, well, legally there's no mechanism for that. Sure, it's an important point to bring up, but it's not going to stop him from doing it, because if you do something as Antifa isn't a thing, first of all, but if you say Antifa is a domestic terror organization, you can pretty much say whomever you want is Antifa. Me, you, Mike, we're clearly Antifa because and it's like, well, can you take that argument to its conclusion? What does that mean, Antifa? I'm against fascism. Okay. Uh-oh, not that. But regardless, that's kind of what I think that this will be used for.
Oh, yeah.
And it's similar to them showing pictures of clock tattoos and saying that man's in Nicaragua and under the Alien Enemies Act, I can deport him. No, that's illegal, but he's doing it right now. And he has been for a while because it takes so long for the courts to catch up, and he knows that. And as far as death by 1,000 paper cuts, I can announce some, I guess, a little bit of breaking news because I haven't forgotten about the Epstein files. You know, I sued for Freedom of Information Act requests because my reporting uncovered that the 1,000 or so FBI personnel that were sent to look through the Epstein files were given video trainings in PowerPoint and on the FBI SharePoint, high side and low side, on how to find Trump, tag him, log it in your local Excel spreadsheet, upload your Excel spreadsheet to a portal where somebody will, you know, put them together into one master spreadsheet. And so I've asked for those training videos because I know I'm not going to get the other stuff because it's under Rule 6E. You can't release a lot of that information because they're uncharged individuals, for example.
Wow.
So at first the FBI said, sorry, MSW Media, that's my network, my podcast network, isn't a media organization. You're not a legit media organization. We appealed that, and the FBI accepted our appeal and said, on behalf of MSW Media, the FBI has informed this office it has changed your client's category to a representative of the news media. So everybody, I'm a real boy, first of all.
Yay!
I am an
Real
official
boy, real boy.
outlet according to the FBI. And that allowed us to file, and the fact that they haven't done anything, we filed today a partial motion for summary judgment, or a motion for partial summary judgment, to expedite my request for these videos, because it's been 45 days and the FBI has done nothing. So if you want to see that, I break it down for you, and I put it on my Substack here at MuellerSheWrote.com. So we filed that.
Well done, Allison.
And that's just a tiny little one of the paper cuts in the death by 1,000 paper cuts, right?
I think it's a big paper cut. I think it's a big paper cut because over 80% of Americans, folks, and looking at the data, I know you love data, Mike. I've been looking at this data. This is the only bipartisan issue in America. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and MAGA, over 80% say release the files. I've said, Mike, and Allison, congratulations on that. Stay dogged on that because Allison's done fantastic reporting. And these people are speaking about incompetence. They're so incompetent that they had an FBI division, according to Allison's reporting that no one gave her credit for, that was literally combing through the Epstein files and tagging Donald Trump. And they were all working off the same Excel sheet, which was open and not restricted. So that means the discovery is all there. But speaking about Epstein files, Mike, I've said the three cankles. I said Donald Trump has three Achilles cankles: Epstein, economy, and now his health. And I think these are three weaknesses. And I want to ask you about this because speaking about death of 1,000 cuts, I have waded into MAGA territory because for me, I have to know how they think. And for the first time, Mike, I've been watching Candace Owens because Candace Owens has been on a warpath. And Candace Owens, folks, for those who don't know, and Michael tell you, is very influential in conservative media. They say like 30% of MAGA voters listen to her, right?
Yeah.
The analogy I've given Mike, and I want you to just expand on this, is MAGA radicalized their base through conspiracy theories and QAnon. They thought they can control the base as a weapon against the rest of us. That monster has escaped the lab and is turning on Dan Bongino and the FBI and the deep state when it comes to Epstein, but also when it comes to Charlie Kirk's murders. I'm sure you follow that Candace Owens is on a warpath right now. She doesn't believe the government. Steve Bannon doesn't believe the government. Cat Turd doesn't believe the government. And even Matt Walsh doesn't. I think that's another fissure. Talk to us about that, Mike.
Yeah, and I think the real canary in the coal mine there was Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, right, coming out and basically not being 100% full. Like, where's she been lately? She's been awful quiet because she is not 100% on the Trump train anymore, at least as it relates to Israel. What you have to understand about the right and this kind of the use of conspiracy theory to be the glue that held everything together is that's easy when there's a common enemy. When it's Joe Biden and when it's the Democrats, that's how you keep an organization like this together. Once you're in control, all of that starts to splinter because the fake reality you've built at some point is going to demand answers. And when you've got Kash Patel up there basically lying, right, and defending Donald Trump, it's evident even to members who've completely bought into this and have consumed many years of their lives believing these conspiracy theories. They are now going, wait a second, it's so obvious that there's something being wrong, that we're being lied to, that yes, in fact, we are demanding answers. So there's one other point I wanted to make too, just speaking about data. The one difference between this moment and the authoritarian moment that we are absolutely experiencing, and I think you're right, we need to quit saying it's coming. It's
It's
here.
here. It's
It's
here.
not that the signs are saying it's coming, it's here, right? But one of the really a lot of historians and experts on this, Ruth Ben-Ghiat and others, would say one of the most important things about successful authoritarian movements is they're usually at about 70% approval in the polls right now with their own people. They've got some popular support. Donald Trump is at historic lows at the moment. Okay, historic lows, and likely, I said, to go lower. Now, I believe that Trinity, that unholy Trinity that you just mentioned, the three cankles that he's got, Achilles cankles, love that, is the research and the data, as much as we are all rightfully getting exercised about the destruction of our institutions and our rights in the Constitution. The economy overwhelmingly remains the main point. And a lot of this, and like I said, I never try to ascribe any sort of genius motives or some really brilliant strategy about distracting us from this stuff. I think it's just chaos is in their nature. But the more of the focus that remains on the economy, all the voters in all of these special elections that have done so well for the Democrats is where the candidate is singularly focused on the economy. That is going to be determinative in the size of Democratic gains going into 2026. That does not mean everything else is not important. It's vitally important. But for the moment, when you're leading on an offensive, tactical, game plan heading into the midterms, the economy is what's going to move the most voters. That's what's going to drive change here because it's getting so bad and so difficult for folks, and Trump owns all of it. So we've got to attack on all fronts. It's a kitchen sink moment, all of the above strategy, but the tip of the spear should absolutely be the economy.
So,
Yeah,
I want to ask you about the offense real quick because, I agree with offense on everything, offense on all the messages. The unifying factor, meaning I would say go against the broligarchy, the billionaires, the corruption, the economy. You could get independence that way. You could get, people, Mamdani said, make things more affordable. People can't afford. Trump voters like Mamdani, Trump voters like ANC,
Right.
right? But this is where I want to ask you, because you've been saying it since last week, and I agree with you. This is a scary moment. This is it. Fascist moment. He can use that declaration of Antifa to kill us. That's what they tested out with Venezuela. He was allowed to kill 11 individuals without any evidence, and he said, "Oh, no one stopped me. Okay, let me just declare you all Antifa." But this is where the money comes in, and you have said, "Shut it down, shut it down, shut it down." Okay. And you wanted to say something else also, but I want to ask you about that whole shut it down policy strategy as well.
Can I just, Mike, I just want to piggyback on what you're saying about the economy, just real quick before we go into the shut
Take
it
your
down.
time. I want to hear it. Yeah.
Because we reported on the Daily Beans, yesterday's podcast, a new poll from The Economist is out. His approval rating is now lower than the lowest approval rating in history, which was also him in 2017. And they took the top 6 issues for Americans right now. And number 1 is inflation and prices.
Yep.
Number 2, jobs in the economy. So number 1 and number 2 are economy. then healthcare, then civil rights, then taxes and government spending, and then immigration is number 6. So that's where the majority of the people are. And I think sometimes we can tend to, when we talk about our democratic leadership and we say do something, and we see a lot of people who have been playing by that playbook. Oh, well, let's just wait till the midterms and let them, hang themselves with enough rope. Let's give them enough rope to hang themselves with. I think because there are a lot of Democrats that are doing a lot of things in Congress, and we should recognize that, and we should say, good job for doing what you're doing. But there are a ton of people who are relying on the fact that the economy is the number one issue. And, honestly, Donald Trump doesn't even have to bother to fire Lisa Cook and members of the Fed Reserve Board. All he's got to do is keep tanking the economy and raising inflation, and he'll get the rate cuts he wants. She just voted to cut the rates after the Supreme Court refused to stop him from removing her, at least for this week. So anyway, I just wanted to piggyback
No,
on what
and
Mike
also,
was
and
saying.
Allison, with the numbers, just thank you so much for bringing those numbers. And also, folks, I've been following these numbers also. He's negative double digits on inflation and the economy, negative double digits. And immigration.
And for the first time, white people are below 50% for the first time ever for Donald Trump.
And that is killer. That is killer. And folks, I was talking to Nick Perro right beforehand, and Mike and Allison. Well, I also want to ask you this. I was talking to a bunch of friends yesterday on text, and I was talking to Pete, Dominic, and Francesca, and I said, "Listen, man, the whites, they thought, hey, this won't affect me. He'll go after the Latinos, the Muslims, the pro-Palestinian activists. Now the whites are like, oh shit, we ain't safe. Even the rich whites ain't safe. So we need the whites to, because look, Mike, let's keep it real. White lives matter more in America. White grievance matters more. When white people talk, people pay attention. When white moms are the suburban moms, the real moms, our moms are apparently not real, right? So when white people get pissed off and white people's skulls get cracked as they're protesting, more and more people pay attention. And this is where Allison, as the representative of all whites, and you're my favorite white, talk to us about white people in particular, especially they were so good with no kings rallies. They're at the forefront. Talk about shutting it down. Talk about a strike. Talk about not funding this government and talking about making it hurt where it really hurts people, the corporations, those who are complicit with the dollar.
So the shutting it down strategy is very broad-based. It can go from everything. I know there's a lot of increasing discussions with the soft secession, as it's called, right? There's increasing discussions about how blue states who are contributing to red states can use a number of vehicles to contribute less or not contribute or be involved. There's the little shutting down of the government as the budget issue starts to come in October, I think it is.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. I mean, and there's going to be some debate as to whether or not Democrats should help Republicans bail themselves out of this problem yet again. Look, from a political perspective, the Republicans own all of this now. This is a little bit different than the last time when Schumer kind of jumped in and kind of threw a lifeline to keep the government open. The public opinion was in a different place back then. And I do believe that Democrats would have allowed the Republicans to blame the Democrats for the shutdown. Look, they're going to try to do that anyway. They'll blame Joe Biden. They'll blame Barack Obama. They'll blame Hunter Biden. They'll blame whoever they can for whatever's going on.
Banksy shut down the government.
Yeah, precisely. So they're going to try to do that anyway. But public opinion is now so completely locked in that all of what is happening is Trump's, because it is, that they're not going to be able to use that. They'll use it with their base. It will work with their base. Their base will believe everything. But with independents, with young people, with Latino voters, and Latinos are that new soccer mom. It's the largest swing voter in American politics. And to your point, when it was soccer moms, everybody was like, oh, what kind of policy solutions can we get to proactively, aspirationally, kindly get them to come to our side? With Latinos, you're not seeing the parties, and I'm going to say to the Democrats too, you're not seeing the type of action you need to get these voters back. But with the Republicans, it's just like hitting them with a club over the head, which is why they're leaving. And most of that polling with Latinos, whether it's Ekis or whether it's the focus groups that have been done recently or whether it's Gallup, all of it is saying even though they're coming off of Trump, which they are, to your point, back to 2016 levels, they're not necessarily going to the Democratic Party yet. There's a big opening. There's a big opening, and this shutting it down strategy can be a part of that, because that is going to completely, the blame for that is going to fall completely on the lap of Trump and the Republicans, 110%, whatever those strategies are, because they own it. And
It
again,
has to.
it has to, but what I will say is that you're right, it has to, but we owe it to ourselves to keep running that offense and driving that message to make sure that the has to sticks,
Well,
right?
yeah, that's why I
So
think we should make our language be like, "Go ahead, Republicans, you shut it down."
yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
Instead of we're gonna shut it down. And
And
go
and
ahead.
everybody who's regularly online, it's important to kind of communicate and amplify the voices on Epstein. It's important to amplify it on Kimmel. It's important to amplify it on all of these things. But if you're not also messaging about how bad the economy is, you're missing the boat. And that does matter, because that's where most of the low information voters are at. And all of the online social media chatter starts to change the narrative. We've got to stay focused that the economy is what people are most concerned about, and they blame him, as Allison just pointed out, at historic levels. They blame him. It's getting worse, and we can't allow him to say, "Oh, it's a black woman on the Federal Reserve Board that's the cause of all of these problems," because that's what they're going to try to do.
Can
Yeah,
I
and
say something, folks? Go ahead, Allison. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, if we just look, Mike, at the top 6 things I just listed and how they impact whites, when we're talking about the economy, number 1, right? And, when we're talking about healthcare, right, what RFK Jr. is trying to stop recommendations for vaccines for people, suburban folks sending their kids to schools without, vaccine mandates or
And
whatever.
now pregnant women just came out today.
And so, yeah, and so now but I don't wanna discount how negatively impacted the whites' view of this administration is on immigration, because even though it's not yet targeting, at least for the most part, any white people, like Professor Jelani Cobb brought up when he teaches the Fugitive Slave Act in his class, and why so many people, including non-abolitionists, were against it. It's because these are our neighbors in our community, and that's really important to certain demographics. And so I wouldn't discount necessarily that being one of the things that's pulling white voters away as well, even though they're not directly impacted. They're impacted, by proxy through their neighborhoods, because as the professor said, the number one unit of civic unit in our nation is neighbor. And so I think that might also be part of that too. But I do agree that it's there's just so much all the farmers who are about to go broke because China won't buy soybeans, they're losing all their money. All of the rural hospitals, there's now a Hunger Games for a fund that rural hospitals can try to get, and I'm sure that they're going to be awarded these grants, because they gutted Medicaid, so these rural hospitals are going to close, and they're going to award these grants based on whether you got DEI, or if you have transgender health or gender affirming care, or whether you're a sanctuary city, or whether your mayor is a black woman. No, sorry, we can't grant you your
And
rural.
nursing homes are going to shut down in rural America, which means that grandma and grandpa, Republican grandma and grandpas, are going to die. But speaking about the overarching messaging, folks, I've been saying this for a while. I want to test this out with you and Mike and Allison. And I don't care whether you like Mamdani or not. I don't care if you're Democrat, or socialist, but what works? And I just tested it on Twitter, of all places, which is a hellscape. And this was the one tweet that actually didn't get the trolls up. And I said this on Twitter 2 hours ago. I just did a test. Trump voters, you're only letting billionaires take all your money and freedoms. That's what's happening. An oligarchy is destroying your rights. You're not owning the libs. You're being owned by Trump and his billionaire friends. In the past week, this is the only tweet on the hellscape that has not been ratioed by the bots. Furthermore, if you look at Mamdani, what does he say? Make America affordable again. I don't believe in billionaires, but I'll work with them. Free buses. Why the F not? Let me throw it out there and I'll try, okay? There are voters, look at Mike at the data, who voted for Donald Trump, who said, I like Mamdani, I'll vote for him. In 2024, there are people who voted for Donald Trump and voted for AOC. In 2016, Mike will tell you Latinos were like, I like this Bernie guy. He wants to go against the establishment. All right, there's Trump, I'll vote for him. 2020, Latinos in the Midwest and West, I'll go for Bernie again. It's because the message is the rich are screwing you, the institutions are screwing you, the establishment has failed, we need something new. We don't care if you call us Democrats or Democratic Socialist or populist or Republican. Who will make my life better? You give people a story. Good guy, the majority, the worker, the 99% wants to make their life more affordable. The end goal. Who is impeding the end goal? A villain. The elites, the billionaires, Donald Trump and his friend, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, David Sachs, Larry Ellison. The
Jeffrey
billionaires
Epstein.
are screwing Epstein. They're screwing all of us. It's us versus the broligarchy and this corrupt institution, and we need reform. Under that rubric, you get the economy, you get taxing the rich, you get increasing wages, you go against the broligarchy, you expand the pie, and then you can bring on the fascist regime and make comparisons to Russia and Hungary. It's a layup to me, Mike. It's a layup. And the reason why I think Democrats aren't doing it is there's some Democrats, especially the leadership, who still suck at the corporate teat and cannot evolve. And they want to suppress this message. But I think this is the one that wins. Whoever grabs this, gets control of the Democratic Party, emerges as the leader, can win and unite the people. If I'm wrong, you tell me, Mike and Allison.
I
Mike.
think you're 100,000% correct. That's exactly the message. That's what all of the data are showing us is this emergent anti-establishment populism. Well, who's the establishment? It's the people with money and power and control. And that's the way voters are responding and reacting. So yeah, there's no question. Look, I don't know Democratic politics well enough to be better than you are to understand what the coalition politics look like, but I can tell you the broad thematic of what's happening with working class and Latino voters and voters of color, and you nailed it. You explained it perfectly. I don't even
Can,
have
can,
anything
you,
to add.
can you tell them about
I,
Latino
I
voters and how? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to your question. I think what makes Mamdani win and what makes Mamdani popular is that he talks to his constituents and asks them what they want. And that answer is not going to be the same in New York as it is going to be in Florida's 6th district, for example. You're going to have different answers, but what matters is the genuineness, that they go out on the ground, ask the voters what they want, and then campaign on that. And I think you're right that the overarching umbrella is going to be the same. Now, the way to deal with it may be different in different districts, but the overarching message is the same, which is this is top versus bottom. The billionaires are stealing your money. They don't want you to have health care. They want to come and snatch your neighbors away. They want to destroy small businesses. They want to stifle free speech. I mean, so I agree. I think sometimes the practical on the ground solutions to that problem may be different and vary from district to district and probably pretty widely vary. But the thing that makes Mamdani good at this is and the template that everyone should follow is that he gets on the ground, he talks to the constituents, in the voters that he will be representing, and finds out what they want. It's like why Bernie kept winning in Vermont with such a great NRA score, because his constituents in Vermont are pro-gun. They're 2A people, right? So he crafted his campaigns around what they wanted, even though and I think that's why, nationally speaking, a lot of progressives were like, we don't care about that because that's what his constituents want. And that's why he had that particular score with the NRA. So I think we're not stupid. I'm so tired of people like James Carville and all these pundits and advisors of the Democratic establishment saying, well, don't say that because the voters won't understand. I'm not
They
naive.
get it. The voters get it. The voters get even in the whitest, most real Rust Belt people who don't look like me and Mike, who look like you, Allison, real America. The fighting the oligarchy message is working. Mamdani's oligarchy message is working with Asian mom immigrants, right? But basically, the story is the rich are effing us. The rich are getting richer. I want to make my life affordable. They're the bad guys. The billionaires have always been the bad guys in Superman, in comic books, in Bond movies, right? Mike, the reason why I want to go back to you because of the data, and I'll let you all leave in a bit. We have 2,500 people watching. That makes me very happy. because we have really smart people. For those who are tuning in late, this is Mike Madrid, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, who spent 30 years literally in the deep muck research, working on Latino trends, knows it inside out. Allison, who has 37 jobs, never sleeps, of Mother She Wrote and the Daily Beans podcast. Subscribe to them. I'll plug them shamelessly in the end. But let's just use Latino voters, because Democrats just keep effing up. And you said it. They're there now. There are all these voters who have left Donald Trump now. The Latino voters who went for Trump, wanted a better life, they've left him. The young voters who wanted a better life, they left him. But they're in the wilderness. They're in the wilderness, and the Democrats aren't going after them. Just so people think we're not crazy, talk to us about how Latinos who voted for Trump were perfectly fine voting for Bernie.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is key to understanding the whole thing. Latino voters have the weakest partisan anchor of any ethnic group in America by a wide stretch. And look, regardless of what happened in the 2024 elections, there's one data point that everybody needs to pay attention to. Latinos are the only group in America that are 50-50 right now. Okay. That needs to be viewed as an opportunity. You got to go in and get them, but you've got to talk to them about what the overwhelming evidence suggests, which again is an economy, a working class agenda. Look, Donald Trump fooled a lot of people by just saying no tax on tips, right? He's never really had an economic agenda. And by the way, this is really important. I wrote a piece for The Atlantic that ran in June on this point. Donald Trump's collapse with Latino voters began on his quote unquote liberation day. It began when he started talking about tariffs. This was fully 8 weeks before the immigration raids. Okay. So there's this natural tendency to say, oh, this is going to be all about immigration. And see, there's going to be regret. And I told you so's, and you never should have voted for that. Maybe that's true, but it's not on the immigration issue. It's on the economy over and over and over again. I'm going to keep saying that and saying that because whether it's Mamdani or whether it's Ruben Gallego in Arizona, they're both getting Latino working class voters back by, is what Allison said, by speaking to them and their concerns. It's not even ideological. It's as simple as at least saying, this is my plan, this is my priority, this is what I'll do, and I will fight for you. You
I
simply
will
say
fight
that.
for you.
You say that, and the door's going to open for you. It's going to open wide. And it's, again, they're going to listen to a whole broad range. These same voters that voted for Mamdani voted for Donald Trump 6 months prior to that. And then 2-3 years prior to that, they voted for Eric Adams, a conservative law enforcement Black Democrat. Like, there's nothing ideological about this. If you want to win on your ideology, Latinos are saying, tell me about it. Convince me. I'm here. I want to hear it. Anybody who's willing to help, anybody who's willing to have an idea, I'm with you. But talk about that. All of this other stuff, again, I'm not going to say it's a distraction because it's very important. But like as Allison pointed out in her own polling, immigration has now dropped down to 6.
It's wild.
This was number 2 in November, guys.
Yep.
So in many ways, Trump, through this brutal, awful way of doing it, has taken one of his winning issues off of the table for himself. Nobody believes it's the crisis that they're making it out to be anymore because it's not. So all of this is now viewed as overreach. Tanks in the streets with guys picking weeds and mowing lawns now in military fatigues because there's nothing to do. It's all theater. It's all a charade. That's why this focus has to be, like I said, on the economy, the economy, the economy. Don't worry about being exactly right on this policy or that policy or exactly what the message is or isn't. If you're talking about that, whether you're Ruben Gallego in Arizona, Mamdani in New York City, in Florida 6, the data is overwhelming.
Tallarico, like that guy from Texas, Tallarico, who's has the same top versus bottom message, and he's taken off, and he's a Christian, and I think he's from Texas. And also on immigration, you know the numbers. Last time I checked 2 weeks ago, it was his strong issue, and now he's -7 on immigration because of the overreach.
Yes, it's no longer viewed as border security, even by a third of Republicans. It's now viewed as federal overreach. They've lost the plot on their own core issue. So, like I said, don't play into that, man. Don't save them. Don't throw a lifeline to them. Talk about where we know voters are at, what they're primarily concerned about. It doesn't mean we don't talk about these issues. The Epstein stuff does matter. The immigration stuff does matter. The overreach does matter. Due process does matter. The Constitution does matter. But using a pure save democracy frame, that didn't work out very well in 2024, right? Trump just said, "I'll do better on the economy." That's all he had to say. And a lot of people, and look, there may be a lot of pushback on this, but I think it's getting clearer and clearer every day. The 2024 election was about inflation and the economy and affordability. It was. But you know what? 2026 is going to be about the same thing, and they own the whole damn thing. So don't save them from themselves. Learn from what they did and do it better and get bigger results, in the upcoming elections.
Allison, I'll give you final word. I think the unifying theory, especially, I want people to sit with this. This is scary. We're in a fascist moment now. It's happening. Donald Trump unilaterally declaring his enemies Antifa, with Stephen Miller at the helm, unleashing the National Guard, using words like insurrection, using words like invasion, trying to suspend habeas corpus, saying he can invoke the Alien Enemies Act, using the power of the FCC to crush any dissent, engaging in extortion. We're in it now, folks. I want to be very clear. We are in it. However, I want to reiterate that Trump is weak. These are signs of weakness. They do not have the numbers. We have the numbers. We have to organize, and we have to be on offense 11 out of 10 times. Offense, 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 fight, fight, fight. Do not bend the knee on anything. Allison, final word to you as a recommendation to both people and Democrats on how to fight back in this moment where Jimmy Kimmel should be our own wake-up call as to what this Trump administration is willing to do.
How to fight back. We do a good trouble segment every day. Yesterday was to email ABC, maybe cancel. I know a lot of people are using their pocketbooks to fight back because the economy is such a main issue. We've seen Target, their CEO has had to resign, and they've lost. They dropped 5% back to school week because the two teachers unions came out and said to boycott Target because of their anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion stances. Those kinds of things can, I think, work. But as far as what you can do, my best advice is to not try to stop fascism all at once. I've often compared this to an episode of Hoarders, where the people will walk into the house and look at it and say, "Nope," and just turn around and walk away because it's just too much to take on at once when you see
Chip away, chip away.
when you see the entirety of it. But if you walk back into the corner of the bathroom and just start cleaning out the bathtub, that's a start, right? So pick something small, focus on community. Good resistance is focused resistance. And the idea of this entire giant shit show and everything going on at once is meant to overwhelm you and make you walk out of that house and not start cleaning it. Just try to, look at the trees instead of the forest and pick one thing that is important to you and focus on that. Maybe it's a school board race. Maybe it's a water board race where you live. Maybe it's writing postcards to voters in a swing district in the 2026 midterms or in a special election like the one that we just won in Iowa. Whatever it is, pick something small, focus on it, and stay there, because trying to defeat fascism all at once, it takes all of us doing tiny things, not one person doing everything. And that's why putting all of our faith in Robert Mueller or Jack Smith or Joe Biden, one person's going to fix everything for us, never works. It never, ever, ever works, because the government is of us and by us. And with all of us working together, each of us doing a tiny little part, that's how we get this shit done.
Bravo. Well said. I agree with all of it, folks. Local. Breathe. Do not get overwhelmed. Everyone wants to be a superhero. Everyone wants to save the world. Save yourself first. Save your home. Save your street. Inform yourself. Inform your family, right? Like Dr. Kavita Patel told me when she was talking about our collapsing healthcare system. The advice she gave me on this show was, when you're on a plane, what does the attendant tell you? Mask on yourself first, then your kids, right? So be informed, take care of yourself, your family, take care of your mental health. This is a long walk. It's going to be a long walk. Anyone who's looking for a haymaker, that's not how you take out fascism. Death through 1,000 cuts. Every cut adds up, right? Run for office, your dollar, folks. I'm so glad Allison mentioned that Target story, is that there was a buy-in to Costco and there was a buy-out from Target for the past 8 months. You know what happened? As Allison said, Target's CEO of 11 years resigned because all that foot traffic from Target went to Costco. This country loves money. Our religion is capitalism. Do not underestimate the power of money, which is why I've said anyone who's watching, if you work for Disney, Hulu, uh, ABC, Star Wars, Avengers, if you do not show up for work and say collectively, we're not going to show up for work until Jimmy Kimmel is reinstated, do you know what Disney's going to do? They're going to reinstate Jimmy Kimmel, folks. So work on the local level, get informed on a single issue, school board, city council, run for office, put pressure on your local Democrat. Folks, I will say this. I think there's two litmus tests for the Democratic Party moving forward. This is where the numbers are and the data is. Who takes on the corporations and the billionaires? Who has an economic populist message, number one. And number two, Israel-Palestine. You might not agree with me, folks. The overwhelming majority of Democrats, even in the America First movement now, as Mike was saying with Marjorie Taylor Greene, do not want to support this war, Israel and Yahoo. And after pressure, you know what happened yesterday, folks? A big piece of news. Bernie Sanders calls it a genocide. Chris Van Hollen calls it a genocide. 27 Democratic senators said no aid to Israel until it stops committing this genocide. So everyone who thought this was impossible, I'm just showing you in real time, these folks, Mike knows this, they read every poll. And they have to now meet their base. So I'm just giving you an example of how pressure shifts. It shifts. And folks, we are dealing with fascists here and abroad, and we have to end it. So I want to thank Mike and Allison. Mike, shamelessly promote yourself to the nearly 3,000 people watching.
Mike, go for it.
Yeah, I live mainly on my Substack, which is called The Great Transformation. I do a podcast called the Latino Vote Podcast with Chuck Rocha, a good Democrat who ran Bernie Sanders' campaign. If you want to follow on Latino Vote stuff, that's a good place to get information. But I'm writing every day on my Substack at The Great Transformation. That's where you can find me.
Everyone, subscribe right now, and then Allison, shamelessly promote yourself and the 47 things that you do this week.
With my new video podcast on Midas Touch, I now write, produce, record, and co-star in 10 shows a week. So everybody, there's plenty out there to catch. Would love it if you would subscribe to my Substack for free. If you can, all the content's free, like Watch, we're bad capitalists, but you can always kick in some money if you have the means. But if not, no bigs. We just appreciate you being there. It is free to subscribe, and every single bit of content, nothing's behind a paywall. So Mueller, She Wrote, it's pretty easy to find. Although the Mueller, She Wrote podcast, I don't do that one anymore. I stopped that after the Mueller report came out, just so everybody knows. In 2020, people are like, why are you still talking about Mueller? I'm like, I'm not. I don't still have that podcast. So check out the Daily Beans for your news.
Someone asked, how do you pronounce my name? Okay, this is how you pronounce it. If you want to be a Midwestern, safe, white teacher, you'd say Wajahat. But if you actually want to do it real, imagine taking out a katana. Wajahat. 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 That's how you say my name.
That's nice. Come on.
Or if you want to save yourself syllables and time, Waj. You could just say Waj. Folks, when people ask, when does Allison sleep? Never. And I am a terrible enabler because I also don't sleep. So I know I'm like, it's late. Who can be up and will talk to me? And I text her. And about 7 out of 10 times she says yes. And the other 3 times when she says no is because she's working on something else. So it's really bad. I feel really guilty, but not really, because whenever Allison comes on, it's a great conversation. And Mike's another one. Mike, I'm like, hey, you want to come on? He always says yes. And when he says no, it's because he's on another phone call. Folks, this has been The Left Hook. There's no paywalls. Everything's free. Please subscribe. Subscribe first and foremost to Mike and Allison. If you have some money, give it to Mike and Allison. If you have a few dollars left over, then send it my way. I have 800 kids. I want to feed at least one of them. But if you have no money, like Allison said, I'm a terrible capitalist. I just want people to be informed. For the 3,000 people watching, I've been talking for the past hour to Mike and Allison. I brought them on. I did my first little spiel, making the case for why Trump is weak and why MAGA is weak. And these are signs of desperate, weak, rabid rats stuck in the corner. I'm not in any way minimizing the threat, but I want you to know that they're weak and we have the numbers. And then we give you strategies about how to fight back. I hope this was useful. Share this with your friends. Be kind, be decent, rest. This is a long walk. This is a long walk. Haymakers aren't going to get it done. Death through 1,000 cuts. So we need you to be joyful, rested warriors. And please, oh, please, don't be a fascist. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks, guys.